All right, so here's what we are dealing with today in Cameroon. Issa Tchiroma Bakary, the main opposition candidate who has been the center of Cameroon's political storm, he updated his Facebook profile. And not just any update, he changed his title to President of Republic of Cameroon. That was for a few hours though. And then he tweaked it again, this time to elected President of the Republic of Cameroon. Both changes disappeared pretty quickly, but by then, a lot of people have took notice and taken screenshots of those changes. Now, the question everyone is asking is this, and I mean everyone, from supporters to political analysts to people who are just trying to make sense of what is happening in Cameroon, is whether this was just a symbolic move or whether it signals something even bigger. Specifically, there are claims now circulating that Tchiroma may have been secretly sworn in during a private ceremony in Gambia. And I have to be clear here, at this stage, none of this is confirmed. There has been no official statement from Tchiroma's camp, no verification. But the speculation, it is becoming intense. And given everything this opposition movement has been through, that speculation is only growing. So what I'm going to do in this report today is walk you through what we actually know, the profile changes that started all of this, the reactions that triggered, and the broader political climate that is now reshaping how people are interpreting this event. We are also going to talk about the 3-day nationwide ghost town protest that the opposition leaders has called as a form of civil disobedience and resistance to the Paul Biya regime, because all of this, they are all connected. And as new claims keep surfacing, I want to lay out the facts, separate them from the allegations that still need verification, and explain why this moment, whatever it turns out to be, matters for Cameroon's political future. We are going to get into what the Facebook changes actually signals, how this Gambia swearing-in allegation even emerged, and why this could be a turning point and not necessarily a good one for where the country is headed right now. Let's get into it. So let's start with what happened on November 28, 2025. That was when Issa Tchiroma Bakary quietly, and I mean very quietly, updated his Facebook profile. No announcement and no fanfare. He just changed his title to President of the Republic of Cameroon. A few hours later, he changed it again, adding one word, elected. So now it reads, elected President of the Republic of Cameroon. And then, just like that, the changes were gone, reverted. But by that point, it didn't matter anymore. Screenshots had already spread across WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram, everywhere, and the reactions were immediate. For a lot of Cameroonians, people who are still processing the disputed October 12 presidential elections, they are still grappling with the Constitutional Council's declaration that Paul Biya won with 53.6% of the vote. This felt like a statement, a rejection. Supporters saw it as Tchiroma asserting what they believe is the true outcome. Critics, on the other hand, dismissed it as political theater, arguing that a Facebook profile change doesn't carry any legal weight. And honestly, both sides have a point here. Civil society groups were watching closely, trying to figure out whether this was preparation for something bigger or just frustration boiling over. What is undeniable is that the timing isn't random. This happened just 2 days before a planned nationwide ghost town protest, which is today, November 30th, and it is going to continue till December 2nd. And almost immediately, the Facebook story collided with an even more controversial claim, an alleged oath-taking ceremony that reportedly happened far from Cameroonian soil. So here's where things get really interesting, or should I say, very, very interesting, because reports started circulating within opposition networks that Tchiroma had participated in a discreet swearing-in ceremony in Gambia. Now, this allegation first surfaced through what people are describing as diplomatic channels, and it was later amplified by social media posts from supporters who claim to have insider knowledge. Some sources said the ceremony had already happened privately with a select group of witnesses. Others are suggesting it was still being prepared, that it was symbolic and didn't occur yet. What we do know is that the Gambian government confirmed Tchiroma arrived in the country on November 7th, 2025. Their official statement said he was being hosted purely for humanitarian reasons to ensure his safety. There was no mention of any swearing-in ceremony. They described it as a temporary arrangement while regional actors work towards some kind of peaceful resolution. And reportedly, Gambian authorities asked him to avoid making public statements that could further destabilize things. But despite all of that, despite the lack of official confirmation, many supporters are treating the allegation as credible. And I think I understand why. They are pointing to Tchiroma's sudden departure from Cameroon, his time in Nigeria, his eventual arrival in Gambia, and they are connecting the dots. They are saying something significant is being planned outside the direct reach of the Biya regime. And honestly, this narrative fits a broader African pattern. We have seen opposition figures use foreign soil for symbolic acts before, especially when conditions at home become too hostile. So attention is now shifting from where the ceremony allegedly happened to what made secrecy necessary in the first place. And this is where we need to talk about what is actually happening on ground in Cameroon, because the political environment has deteriorated rapidly and sharply. The outgoing regime has intensified threats, arrests, and surveillance. Security forces has responded to opposition-led protests with lethal force, live ammunition, tear gas, dispersing crowds in Douala, Garoua, Yaoundé, and other cities. Human Rights Watch has documented killings, injuries, and arbitrary arrests. United Nations sources are reporting that security forces killed 48 people during protests across the country. Opposition sources put that number even higher, at 55. Hundreds of people have been detained, many without even brought before a judge. Lawyers providing legal aid are saying as many as 2,000 people are being held across Cameroon right now. And the charges are hostility against the homeland, revolution, rebellion, insurrection. Some of these charges carry the possibility of the death penalty. And at least 6 individuals are reportedly being held at the State Defense Secretariat, a detention facility where Human Rights Watch has documented, for lack of a better word, routine torture, like there is actual torture going on in that particular facility. And it's not just ordinary citizens being targeted. Opposition leaders specifically have been in the crosshairs. On October 24th, 2 days before the official results were announced, figures like Jekum Tachensent Ekane were arrested without any summons. And the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy reported that its treasurer and other members were kidnapped by local security forces. And the Minister of Territorial Administration publicly stated that Tchiroma would face legal proceedings for allegedly inciting violent demonstrations. So when we talk about why a conventional swearing-in inside Cameroon might not be possible, this is the context. It's not just difficult, it is potentially impossible. And as the tension kept rising, the opposition shifted from symbolic gestures to something more direct, public mobilization, starting with a coordinated act of nationwide civil disobedience. So, opposition leaders announced a nationwide 3-day ghost town. The call went out for transport operators and citizens to shut everything down from Sunday through Tuesday. And the person who made that call was Alice Nkom, a prominent lawyer and human rights activist who was appointed as Tchiroma's official spokesperson on November 17th. In a video, she was direct. She said the ghost town would demonstrate that the country had not turned the page, like the resistance has not given up and they are not planning to give up anytime soon. That no one had forgotten what happened, that Paul Biya stole the election, that Cameroonians wanted one thing, respect for the truth that came out of the October 12th election. And this ghost town, it became the first retest of public readiness, of unity, of resolve. The strategy was non-violent. Stay at home, close your shops, let the street fall silent. The idea was to avoid direct confrontation while still refusing to legitimize a system that many believe denied them a real voice. And the call specifically referenced the Anglophone regions, where residents have been using these exact tactics for years to resist government policies. Now, previous attempts at nationwide shutdowns had produced mixed results. Ghost town call, that was November 3rd till November 5th, and it led to violent clashes between protesters and security forces. It deepened the standoff. The government responded by urging citizens to ignore what they called calls for insurrection and civil disobedience. They warned that anyone fomenting unrest will face the full force of the law. So, this second ghost town came at a critical moment because while citizens were preparing for resistance, government officials were behind closed doors, pushing forward with something else entirely: massive financial demands. Now back to Paul Biya's regime and what they are currently doing while all of this is happening. Several ministers submitted unusually large budget requests for 2026. The overall state budget projected to reach 8.8 billion CFA francs. That is a 14% increase from 2025. The Ministry of Secondary Education requested about 595 billion francs. Youth Affairs and Civic Education asked for 28.7 billion. Sports and Physical Education submitted a request for about 33.2 billion francs. Territorial Administration proposed 42 billion. And the Ministry of Public Works, they are planning to allocate more than 92% of their budget to construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of the national road network. The government also announced the creation of a special fund, about 50 billion CFA francs, for supporting the economic empowerment of women and promoting youth employment. They said it was in line with commitments the head of state made during his swearing-in ceremony. The total financing need for the budget reached about 3.1 billion CFA francs, and the plan is to rely on loans from international development partners, fundraising on the regional capital market, project loan disbursement, external borrowing, bank loans, and public securities. And here is the thing: the scale of these financial requests stand in stark contrast to what people are actually experiencing: deteriorating infrastructure, failing services, a complete lack of transparency. Public frustration over decades of mismanagement is reinforcing suspicions about the timing of all of this. Critics are now asking a pretty straightforward question: how does a government facing a legitimacy crisis justify massive spending increases while citizens are being shot in the streets for demanding electoral justice? And that spending controversy fed into something else: a broader institutional breakdown that erupted publicly inside the National Assembly. Now, let's talk about the controversy currently happening in the Parliament, because debate over the 2026 draft budget collapsed into outright confrontation when the Speaker of the National Assembly blocked opposition lawmakers from taking the floor. This happened during the parliamentary session convened to scrutinize and adopt the proposed budget, the one that had been submitted on November 26th. Opposition members tried to raise concerns about how these funds were being allocated, about the creation of new special accounts, about the overall direction of government spending during a period of intense political instability. The Speaker of the Parliament, Kavaye Jibril, who has held that position for decades, by the way, he was accused of attacking opposition parties right at the opening of the session. He reportedly dismissed their complaints and prevented lawmakers from representing alternative views. And what that confrontation highlighted is how little space exists for dissenting voices within former institutions, even as the country faces its most serious political crisis in years. Observers noted that the inability of lawmakers to debate freely underscored a political system under strain. Decisions are increasingly being made through decrees rather than deliberation. The National Assembly, once portrayed as a forum for national dialogue, appeared reduced to a rubber stamp institution. incapable of addressing the urgent challenges facing the country. So, with institutions strained, financial questions mounting, and public resistance spreading, attention returned to the central issue. What actually happened with Tchiroma's alleged swearing in Gambia? As conflicting reports keep circulating, analysts started trying to separate what is confirmed from what is still unverified. So let me lay it out clearly. This is what we know. Tchiroma actually updated his Facebook profile on November 28, 2025. He identified himself as president and later as elected president of the Republic of Cameroon. What is also confirmed, he arrived in Gambia on November 7th for humanitarian reasons and personal safety. That is according to the Gambian government. What remains unconfirmed, however, is whether any formal or symbolic swearing-in ceremony actually took place in Gambia or anywhere else. The political tension surrounding all of this is undeniable. Public reactions have been intense. Supporters are interpreting the profile changes as preparation for a larger transition. Others see it as symbolic gestures without any legal effect. And the ongoing ghost town protest, November 30th till December 2nd, it represents a critical test of whether the opposition can sustain mobilization and pressure after weeks of violent repression. Cameroon's situation fits within a broader Pan-African push against entrenched regimes because across the continent, citizens have grown increasingly intolerant of leaders who manipulate elections, suppress dissent, and refuse to acknowledge the will of the people. Now, this is what to watch out for in Cameroon right now, because what happens next will tell us if this movement, if this resistance will bear any result or not. Pay attention to public turnout during this ghost town protest. This is key because if it has a wide and nationwide compliance, it means that the resistance is well and alive. We're going to monitor how Pobia's regime will respond to continued civil disobedience. And we're also going to look at diplomatic signals from regional bodies like the African Union and the Central African Economic Bloc. We are also going to monitor official communication from Issa Tchiroma's camp about his next moves. The coming days in Cameroon will determine whether this alleged oath marks the beginning of a transition or the beginning of a much deeper confrontation. Now, if you are watching to this point, this is Frontline Africa, where we talk about geopolitics from Africa's own point of view, where we bring you the kind of stories with the kind of detail that the mainstream media does everything to avoid. The election in Cameroon may have come and gone, but I can tell you this for a fact, the people of Cameroon have not moved on. While Pobia is doing everything to deflect attention and create an image of a country that is moving on and accepting the brutal reality of a man very close to 100 years of age running a country of about 30 million people. The people of Cameroon are telling him, we have not moved on. The fight is still continuing. And Issa Tchiroma in Gambia may be playing some kind of, mind games, updating his Facebook profile to President of Cameroon and now President-elect, and eventually erased it. He is only sending signal that he is still active, that his resistance is still alive. This is what I make out of it. If you are in Cameroon, go to the comment section and tell us what you think about this latest development and tell us if there is any progress being made to end this brutal reign of terror of Pobia. We are all looking forward to that. Now, if you want to continue to see my content, maybe consider to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I am still your host, Ezekiel Enijata, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.